Makeup again. I was outside in the garden, and it's still so freaking hot that wearing makeup would be a stupid idea because it would melt off my face. And really don't want to do that. Anyway, let's see, let's talk. First off, yes, I did see Predator. Did I like it? As far as storytelling goes, it's a fine movie. But as far as historical accuracy, no. The only place you see buffalo is you see a bunch that are skinned and they're dead, and the girl, how did just some other guy, decides that it was the French that did it, not the Predator, even though it's implied the Predator did it. I remember that part. Here's the deal. If you're going to do a Native American story, oh, I'll be on there. I'll be on that quick. If you're going to do a Native American story with the Predator, do it with historical accuracy. All right. I didn't see any horses, and the Comanche are an extremely and were an extremely involved horse culture. In fact, their whole culture was centered around the horse. They were one of only two tribes to actually breed their own horses. The Appaloosa horse breed was developed by the Nez Perce up in the Northwest, and the Comanche bred their own. So they didn't have to go out steal other people's horses, even though they did. They didn't have to go out and capture wild horses. They bred their own. So I didn't see any. The only buffalo you see are dead. The two things that meant anything to the tribe are not present, except for, I'll get the horses. When your brother says that, like, what horses? You wouldn't know what a horse was, right? You know, I was, and then you got the geography. If you watch the video, you know I've been to the Wichita Mountains. They are to the Comanche what the Black Hills are to the Sioux. And Quanah Parker basically talked Theodore Roosevelt into declaring the Wichita Mountains a wildlife refuge. And they were good friends. Quanah Parker and Theodore Roosevelt were great friends. Quanah Parker ate dinner at the White House with Theodore Roosevelt. He rode in his inaugural parade. They were hunting buddies. They hung out, you know, but this was like, all right, if you got the French there and they're in, I'm going to say it, the Southern Plains, like near where the Spanish stopped expanding. You know why the Spanish stopped expanding, right? Comanche. The Comanche were so belligerent and such savages, and I'm not saying that badly, all right? They kept the Spaniards out of the rest of North America, coming up through Texas, all right? You look at Comanche territory where the Cowahadees were near the Llano Estacado, the Staked Plains into where the rest of the bands were on the eastern side. They pretty much, anywhere they were, the Spanish were not. And in the summertime, the Comanche would go into Mexico and raid and steal women, get scalps, steal horses, steal cattle, whatever. And you know, again, you gotta remember that these people were not. Let's put it this way: if you knew Comanche were around, you'd hide your daughters and your sons, okay? Because what they would do was they would go into a settlement. Like, I'll give you an example. Cynthia Ann Parker, the mother of Haycross Element of Quanah Parker, the last war chief of the Comanche, was a little girl living on her parents' settled, they were settlers. Comanches raided their place, killed her parents, took the other women, the older women, took her and raped the older women. They killed her father. They took her and adopted her into their tribe. Okay. She became the wife of a chief, Nakona. And ended up having quite a few kids, including Quanah Parker. But that's what they would do. That's just an example of what the Comanche would do. Okay. They were not fun people to hang out with. I mean, war was their way of life. They were like the Vikings, fighting and killing and all the stuff that went with it was a way of life. So when I'm watching this, I'm like, I don't think the French would have lasted 3 seconds the way they were with that war party there. Okay? They didn't know what they were getting into. Let's put it that way. So, yeah, while it's a good story and the franchise seems to be trying to figure out where it's going from here, it was historically inaccurate. I didn't even see any pack animals like dogs. The Plains Indians, before they adopted the horse, and I mean the Sioux, the Crow, the Shoshone, the Blackfeet, the Blood Indians, the Arapaho, the Kiowa, the Cheyenne, the Comanche, they all used dogs to pull their packs, travois. Just two poles crossed like that, came around like that. You'd stretch a skin of bison, a bison skin on it, put all your belongings on it, and the dogs would pull it. Okay. Later, the horses did that. They had horses that did that, and the women would take care of those animals. But I didn't even see any dogs, except for hers. Yeah, it was cool, but it's sort of like Luke reaching out through the force to get his lightsaber. I'm like, anyway, but let's go further. Let's go into Indiana Jones. So, Doomcock put up a video about Indy 5. He's got another rumor that they have 5 different endings and that Kennedy may just slip in the one she wants without Disney knowing. Want you all to just sit around and think about that for a minute, okay? How would that happen? First off, she'd never get away with it. Okay, that's the stupidest thing What are you doing, Doomy? What? Look, as far as I know, and this is from people I know that worked on the movie, that were there for everything, okay? There was a fight between, I think, Kennedy and Ford about the fedora. I do believe that a lot of those rumors that came out last summer were real because all of a sudden she lost all of her projects, like boom, gone. Okay. And I believe, because I've been told, that Harrison Ford basically said, "This is my movie, not yours. You're not doing this. You're not doing this to Indy." As far I have been told by someone who is in the movie that Ford will never let that happen to Indy. And furthermore, I have been told that he regrets what happened to Han. Again, look, you sit there and imagine Kathy Kennedy, like the Emperor, sitting on the throne of the Death Star, being the most powerful being in the galaxy. Put a 1 in the chat if you still think that's true, or if it was ever true. And a 0 if you don't. Okay. I have never heard of anything so... The woman, and you never hear this from anybody else, you never hear this from Doomcock, Geeks and Gamers, Drunk, or anybody. She just came back from a 40-day vacation. She was in Europe and the UK as long as Jesus Christ wandered in the desert. All right? She's done! What? Look, this is... What is this? It's because it's the doldrums and we have to make shit up now? I'm just waiting for her to go. Okay? I'm just like sitting here going, all right, 5 endings. Okay, I'll buy it. 5 endings. Well, you know, here's the deal. If you are a Patreon member with Cameron, read what he says. The tea leaves. Look, she got, just recently, she got a big fluff piece in Business Insider. Matt Bellany hasn't said a word about Lucasfilm and her since he ripped her a new one and ended it with a backhanded compliment, which is basically why the fuck did this happen? She hasn't really had anything to do with the day-to-day operations or anything at Lucasfilm for a long time. And, you know, Doomcock, he's for some reason has changed his strategy. And part of me thinks he wants more clicks. Fine. I can understand that. But you have a responsibility to your subscribers, okay? And it's not what they want to hear, it's what they need to hear, okay? I don't take the, Ryan Johnson subverting expectations. I'm not going to do that. But I will say this. The woman lost all of her projects. We still have the Acolyte, and of course, Amanda Stenberg was rumored to have said this, that, they're building a great cast around my character. No one even knows what the fuck this show's about. It's like, it's still like up in some Neverland, and they keep saying it's happening, and they've got this studio, and I got into an argument with somebody that worked at Lucasfilm who insists it's happening. I'm like, you do realize that Bob Chapek could wake up in the morning and say, we're not doing this. Call up Kareem Daniel and say, cancel it. He calls up Lucasfilm. Look, just Mike, if that's the case, then it was taken away from Leslie Headland. Okay. She can sit there and talk about how she's involved, but she wouldn't have known Darth Plagueis if he came up and bit her in the ass. Okay, I'm still not watching it. Look, we have to put our feet down. I don't want to have Harvey Weinstein's former personal assistant anywhere near Star Wars. Okay? I don't want this. We don't want this. And we still don't know if it's even going to be made. Okay? So I'm going, this is so stupid. But that's about the only thing. And we have Indy 5. Indy 5 comes out, in 11 months, July. And hopefully it'll be a good movie. And, again, Doomcock won't mention the fact that Spielberg himself actually has seen dailies. He is, after all, an executive producer, and I'm sure he's probably very concerned about what it's going to look like. And, he was like, I'm happy with it. I really like what they did. And if Harrison Ford comes out and says, I'm happy with it and is genuine about it and not being merely professional, we have to stand by it, don't we? Think about it. I'm like, I don't even know what to say anymore about any of this. I'm just, again, rumors came out in the Daily Mail. Suddenly, Kennedy lost everything but it's seemingly like the acolyte, and that's it. All right, nothing else. None of her movies are being made. If you go look on her IMDb pro list, everything on there that's coming up, production unknown, but it's all Kennedy Marshall. It's all Kennedy Marshall. She's been gone for 40 days, but you'll never hear Doomcock say that. He's never mentioned her vacation. This is what happens when you don't do the work. When you sit there and wait for people to tell you. Okay. If you want to know what's going on, you got to go to the people that are doing it and look and see what they're doing. Okay. I've told you how the president is given his daily briefing from the CIA. You know what it is? It's headlines from around the world. That's it. I mean, that's what they do. All right. And Obama didn't like hearing about it. Clinton never really sat down for it. Ronald Reagan was very interested. George Bush was, actually, because he was a former head of the CIA. Probably Biden gets up too late for the briefing, so it goes to somebody else. But that's what it is. And you can garner a lot of stuff from what people are doing. So in the last month and a half, or no, 3 months, Peter Rice gets fired, which is an indication that Bob Chapek got his extension, all right? Numbers for Kenobi come in. Kennedy goes on a month-long, a 40-day vacation with her husband. Then we hear about Chapek's renewal from July 1st to July 1st, 2025? Then she comes back, all right? No, and we get a fluff piece from Business Insider, that's it. That's it. So we have to sit and go, what are we missing here? Okay, what are we not seeing? Okay, and this is, I gotta grab something just a second. Oh, Kojak! Good God. Let me take you and get your toenails trimmed. If he looks wet, it's because he was out in the backyard and I sprayed him with the hose. He goes nuts. He goes bonkers for it. But, she hasn't been doing anything. And anything with the acolyte, it's from obscure web pages, or the actress who's supposed to be the lead is talking about it. Okay. Now we've got, Den of Nerds talking about Plagueis being in it. And really, it's like, then that tells me that Filoni and Favreau took it. It's theirs now. And if that's departure would be preceded by a much fanfare. I was expecting something more than obscure fluff pieces. Well, I was too, but I think, we're going to see more. But she has to, look, you could have her announce she's leaving next July. All right. We know that there's supposed to be big surprises at D23 coming. We've got tomorrow's earnings report. It's going to be very interesting going in. You could look at the lead up to Kenobi about Lucasfilm as being one of the fluff pieces. Okay, or maybe there won't be any. Maybe she'll just announce I'm leaving, and then the fluff pieces will come. But I think with Chapek coming in and landing a blow against Peter Rice, I think we're getting a thunderstorm. Good. We need one. I gotta say this. I'm really, really kind of just waiting for the other shoe to drop. And I really think that's what people should be looking. Don't look at what she does, look at what he does. Oh, no, it won't, because no one, I mean, look, Star Wars Meg will be pissed, I guess, because she likes it, which my dealings with her have not been pleasant. She's not a nice person. She'll be pissed, but that's about it, okay? Acolyte just sounds stupid. It, you know, and it bothers me that someone like Leslie Headland can be allowed to have a Star Wars show. And one has to wonder, why did Kennedy grab her? And she's one, and, in some ways, Headland's an untouchable. She is, Weinstein's former personal assistant. She is a woman who's an untouchable because she's part of the alphabet mafia. But I, I really don't think that it would. Look, here's the deal. When I look at what David Zaslav's doing, and I think, why can't Chapek do it? He might be doing it, except Disney's not going to make a big deal about it because they don't want to piss off their investors, all right? Or they don't want to make their investors think, oh my God, it's unstable there. Peter Rice was a hell of a blow, okay? And really, that rocked Hollywood. So now they know that Chapek is in it for real, and they can't do anything about it. They shot their wad, okay? You know how the walkout failed? It's kind of like how the Democrats are going to fail with this stupid Mar-a-Lago raid. I don't like talking about politics, but when you've got Andrew Cuomo and that Yang character from California saying this is a really stupid move, it was a really stupid move. They basically made it impossible to beat Trump in 2024 if he so chooses to run. And they basically signed their power base in Congress to the ash heap of history. Because look, nothing turns off independent voters more than power-hungry assholes. And I'm going to say this. When your enemy's making a mistake, don't get in their way. Oh, I'd say defund them both. Yeah. And I've always been a fan of the CIA. I dated I dated an analyst, and I also went out with one of their weapons instructors. He was really cool. He was like Mitch Rapp, but a wild man. And I was like, no, I need someone a little more stable. They look. Never get in your enemy's way when he's making a mistake. Well, guess what? There you go. Just like the walkout. Just like, probably Kennedy trying to subvert Indiana Jones with Phoebe Waller-Bridge. Okay? I am really, really, really kind of over this bullshit. Because I see what's going on. And when I see when I look at what's going on, it doesn't make any sense with any of the rumors that Doomcock has. All right, he's gone the complete opposite direction, and he's either being misled, or he's not. Yeah, so I don't know I don't know how to, you know, Kennedy can't be going out the door and defanged and then be the most powerful human being in the universe. And all those people do it. It is not 2018 anymore. The board of directors is different at Disney. And Bob Iger's not running it anymore. Okay. As far as I could tell, and I've said this, and I know you guys saw me say this, Lucasfilm doesn't have any leadership. I mean, she's back now, but what is she doing? You know, is she going to show up at D23? Gallop out on the stage? Yeah, they are being obtuse, and I think the reason why is for clicks. It is, and again, what I think the thing that really bothers me, I wish Mazurus was on right now, because he understands why I'm going to go this. They disrespect Harrison Ford. They disrespect his long-standing professional standing in Hollywood. They disrespect the fact that he basically, without really having to do much, ran Shia LaBeouf into the independent film scene. Okay? And they disrespect the fact that, for all we know, Steven Spielberg is like, I'm done with her. I mean, there's a reason why he said he didn't want to do this. Now, maybe he genuinely didn't want to, but maybe when he realized what her plans were, no. He's just some other guy. He's one of my wrenches. He was just on, sent me a message. I just saw it. And he didn't get the message I'm on live. Just a second. See, now I'm going to leave. We'll see if I stay live. Just a second. Yeah, goody. It worked. So I can do this. What do you mean how much trouble? He's just, I mean, the guy is sitting on a couple of different boards, but that's about it. He's retired. He's not really doing a lot. He goes on Twitter and yells. That's what he does. Yeah, I mean, he is on record saying that. It doesn't mean he didn't like her. It just means he knew what her skill set was. Yeah, he's writing another book. And attacking Bob Chapek. Okay, that's what Bob Iger's doing. But I think the thing that bothers me, and I'll go back to my frustration of last week. I see David Zaslav taking the skizzers out. Bob Chapek fires Peter Rice. And then nothing. 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 And I think right now it's the time, these are my new weightlifting gloves, for the gloves to come on and start doing what you have to. There's no reason, I mean, with the lack of enthusiasm for what Marvel's doing, there's no enthusiasm for Star Wars right now. It is the perfect time for Disney to go in and get rid of people. And I feel like we're all just sitting here doing this. And, the mythology that, the board, is afraid of her. What's the board afraid of? Yeah, that's true. You know what's the board afraid of? Her? Again, it's not 2018, and any thoughts of her power were always greatly exaggerated to begin with. Okay? So I just go, I don't want to hear about it. You know, I'm waiting for her to leave. And I think it's coming soon. I mean, again, I can't get over the 40-day vacation. Hey, Jay, try to get Maze in here. Okay? I can't get over the 40-day vacation. I just can't. I mean, you know, look, when, before Indy 5 started filming, or when they were starting filming, they were in, Marshall and Kennedy were in Cornwall, and they went back. They were there, they left Provence, went to London, stayed in London a few days, and then went to Cornwall, and then came home. Okay. And that was after they were gone most of the month of July in Ibiza, Spain, no, Portugal, Ibiza, Spain, Mallorca, Spain, Provence, then to London, and then to Cornwall, and then home. I looked and looked and looked for any evidence that they had taken a trip like that before. And they haven't. Okay. You look for the unusual. This was unprecedented. This was unusual. Okay. Well, that's the thing. And I'm waiting for someone to say it. You know, I don't look, if you're producing shows like Marshall does, you don't really have to retire. And, you know, again, I think as the head of a studio, Kennedy sucks. Okay. And it's true. Okay. You know, there's nothing you can do about it. I mean, look at what they've been doing with Star Wars. I mean, look what happened with Star Wars. Look at the fact that she couldn't get Willow out in a timely fashion. Look at all this stuff, bullshit surrounding Indy 5. You know, I'm like, no, not really. Okay, no. You know, is she retired now? I would hope we would have an announcement. Is she retiring? Probably. Probably sooner rather than later. But I really do think they need to make an announcement. All right? I don't know if an earnings call is the right time. I think D23 would be a good time. I do. The fact that she was acting very strangely at Star Wars Celebration. And again, you have to read the room. Okay. If you walk into a room and the vibe is different from what it had been before, like you feel like somebody isn't quite there anymore, it's true. You know, I remember when my AA, which is basically chief of staff but in a personal office, in congressional leadership, your boss might be the majority leader, but he has a personal office to take care of his district. He has his chief of staff in the main office. Thank you, Mike. And then he had his admin associate, like the chief of staff, in the personal office. And Gayland Barksdale, who was our AA, went to the Bush administration. He got a job working on the executive side after the election in 2000. And I mean, as it came closer and closer for him to transition out, he was less there. You know what I'm saying? And it was very obvious when you'd walk in that there's different things going on. And because there were other changes, we never got someone to take that spot again. The legislative director, she took that, kind of took over the leadership role. But I was like, it was different. And my feeling when I'm looking at the vacation and all the stuff going on with Disney, and the weird kind of like Kennedy really not wanting to be there at Star Wars Celebration, and kind of the love hate thing Ford had with her going on. I feel very strongly that it had already been decided she was going. And then when you got, Peter Rice gets fired, and the numbers for Kenobi come back, and of course, look, she might not have known at all what was going on the set of Kenobi. If there was anything bad, I like Kenobi. Much better show than Boba Fett. Okay, I thought. But I like Boba Fett too for different reasons. I don't think that Kathy Kennedy knew anything of the interference with Boba Fett. I don't. That's how distracted and disconnected she is from her job. Okay? And she's always been like that. Okay? Look, you can't convince me. So don't sit there and say, she's an imaginary person anymore for everybody. And, I'm watching it again and I disagree, Mike. She's just not there anymore. And she never was. So this imaginary, all-powerful person never existed to begin with. Tom liked to call her a helicopter mother. Or what is it? Disinterested mom. And I don't look at it that way. I don't. I think she's off doing other things. And yes, she is an absentee parent. And she always has been. I remember the rumor coming out that Kennedy hated Star Wars. She does hate Star Wars. She does. Don't tell me any different. She took over a company with the goal of making an Indiana Jones movie and then leaving. And it took her 10 years to get the movie done. And of course, the rumor is it's done. And I don't think it is done. I don't think they're done editing it. In fact, I'll bet you $1,000 that if I grab my other phone and ask James Mangold if the movie's done, he'll say they're still editing. There's so much post-production you have to do with movies like this. What, Kennedy for her sister? No. Ew. No. What I'm saying is she's probably a better producer than a studio head. But running a studio is vastly different than producing a movie. Okay? You ever want to watch a good movie about what a producer has to go through? Watch The Offer. Okay? And watch what Al Ruddy did to get The Godfather made. Okay? Francis Ford Coppola is like, I don't remember it being that way, la la la, but it is really, it's fucking hard work, okay? And there's a quick pace to it. Everything, every day, you're doing something every day. Studio head, you got admin work, which you sit on your butt, write checks, type out letters and meetings, okay? Talk with creatives, talk with the money people, talk with Disney. You know what I'm saying? Not the most glamorous, fun job in the world. Oh yeah, just Mike. Well, you know, if she had her husband with her, if she had, she worked with Martin Scorsese, and she, when that the remake of oh God, it was a Gregory Peck, Robert Mitchum movie, and I can't remember what it's called. Shit. It was about a felon going after the lawyer or the prosecutor that convicted him, and I can't remember what it was called, but Robert De Niro was in it, and he played the bad guy, and it, it didn't do very well. But you got Jurassic Park. Both her husband and herself were involved in that. Clint Eastwood. What movie did she work with Clint Eastwood? I can't remember, but I think that one actually did okay. But it was Clint Eastwood. How many Oscars has that got? One, two, three, four? For directing, producing. It just it. But her on her own, being a studio head and producing, the Star Wars franchise, did not work. It just doesn't work. She let too many people with an agenda get their hands on it, and regardless if she believed in the agenda or not, she worked with George Lucas long enough at Lucasfilm to know what the fans wanted. Okay, I personally blame Bob Iger for this, but I also blame her. Not standing up to George or for George was a mistake. And it's not how much money they put into it, it's how much money they lost. And when people in black pills do this, they're not going to get rid of it because they invested so much money. I look and say they're going to get rid of it because they lost so much money. And they did. And part of that was her fault. All right? Part of it was her fault. Allowing Iger to shit can what George wanted to do and then freezing George out. Just like what Amazon did with Peter Jackson in Lord of the Rings, is a bullshit move. Oh yeah, I know, Mike. I know. And oh, you're right. You're right, just some other guy. I mean, look, David Zaslav, when he talked about a reset for DC, I want to hear Chapek say that about Star Wars. A new foundation. And I'm not saying redoing the EU or the OT. Reset where Kennedy went. And what I mean is go in a different direction from the sequels. Okay? Go in a different direction from the comic books. Countermand what they've been doing. Because that's the only way the fans are going to come back. All right? I've got Kennedy Goes, new head of Lucasfilm, Pablo Hidalgo, the story group, and all the woke people are fired, gone. And an announced reset in the sequel era, avoiding the dumpster fire. Okay? New characters, new bad guys. I gotta say this, as many people who complain about the Usain Vong, the Vong, I gotta tell you this, I would have much rather seen them than Snoke and Palpatine come back. I mean, look, there were a ton of great ideas in the EU that they could have used, and instead we got J.J. Abrams. And meanwhile, Zaslav is sitting there looking at Abrams going, I don't know what to do with you. Okay, and that's a BFD, guys. That is a BFD. So I'm literally like, we need this. We fucking need this. The fans need this. Oh yeah, yeah. I mean, they would have, it would have given Luke's young Jedi apprentices, Jaina, Jason, Anakin, Mara Jade, and all the rest of them, something to do beyond, fighting the Sith. You could have brought Darth Krayt in, was it, in the end, and other bad guys, and made them something else but villains, without being Sith. I mean, they tried to do that with Kyle Ron, and it was like walking into a beta male sorority house with him. I'm like, and look, you want to know what? Lucasfilm, the people that still like this shit there, and their fans are reduced to using bots to talk about Rey and Kyle Ron. I've seen a few Raylos show up here and there, but that's it. There's not nearly as many as there were. Okay, there's no, look, they can't even get bots to defend it. And again, if it becomes apparent that they're going to get shit canned the sequel trilogy, we'll probably see Twitter lose its mind for 2 days and then it'll go away, never be heard from again. Now, I'm not saying that the shows won't shut up. Molly Damon and her bitch Alex will scream. Jason Ward will probably try to hack in people's Twitter accounts, and shit like that. But there you go. And the only way they're going to be able to do that is for Kennedy to step aside. Look, why would it bother her? She didn't care about it to begin with. There comes a point when you got to sit there, look out across that vast Pacific Ocean from your balcony with your glass of Chardonnay and go, I fucked up. I fucked up. It's time for someone else to come in and fix what was broken. I fucked up. And an adult could do that. The fact that I feel like people are still worried about her ego. Oh, well, I got to tell you, there was a massive hack in Twitter, and a bunch of anonymous accounts lost had a bunch of information go out. Twitter is very easily hacked into. Remember, what was it, 2020, where that kid in Florida took down Twitter and stole a bunch of DMs and everything. It was down for like a long time, and I was laughing my ass off. Because for a long time, Ryan Johnson basically took his account offline. And what he was doing is he's deleting tweets. A ton of them. And I was hoping, what Lucasfilm needs to really get the ball rolling is a massive hack of their email. And Twitter needs a massive hack of DMs, and all of that shit comes out. All the stuff they've been saying to each other. Disney would then just say, oh my God, you're all fired. Go away. I mean, all that would be left is, Jon Favreau, Dave Filoni, Leland Chee, and a couple of Doug Chang, and it'd be like, the fuck? And the guys at ILM and VFX, like the sound people. It'd be like, everybody else is gone. Yeah, I mean, because that's what's going to happen. And that, and that's the thing. So tomorrow we've got the earnings call, almost 24 hours from now. I'm going to definitely be in Valiant's chat to watch. And if anybody wants to send me a link to that website so I can listen myself, because I might not. I mean, I'll probably be in Valiant's, but who knows? Because I want to hear what's going on. It'll be interesting. I think it's going to be a mediocre earnings call. And I don't know if we're going to hear anything about Lucasfilm or not. I don't think that JPEG is going to mention the Acolyte. Look, the Acolyte didn't have any announcements at Star Wars Celebration, but they waited till San Diego Comic Con to say something. Hey, Joe, I mean, come on, man. Come on, okay? It's just, to me, kind of one of those things where you're like, okay, because look, last time I listened into this, basically JPEG said fuck China without saying it when Doctor Strange did so. I mean, Doctor Strange did pretty well. Okay, it didn't do great, but it didn't do horribly. It didn't do $1 billion. But I think a lot of it was because of the story. And really, Elizabeth Olsen, I can only take so much from her, and I'm like, anyway, I'm gonna go. And you guys have a good afternoon. But I just thought I kind of talk a little bit about Prey. Good show, historically really inaccurate. And that really bothered me. Let's see what else. Doomcock's rumors on Kennedy. Let's ignore the fact she's been gone for 40 days. Okay. That's not going to get, super chats and thank you and everything. I liked it, Polly, but it was really historically inaccurate. First off, where were the horses? Okay. At this time, if we've got French explorers, trappers, or hunters showing up, thank you. Can you put that in a comment when the video's over? You've got to have horses in the timeline. The Comanche they built their whole worlds around the horse. Buffalo, I also saw dead ones. The geography is not the Rocky Mountains. It's mostly hot, arid, flat, desert. No, they were Plains Indians then. Look, the horse came in when the conquistadors showed up in 1505? They started adapting the horse in the mid 1500s, and by the 1700s, they had a pretty good world that surrounded them. They were pretty much Comanches then. Okay, they spoke an Aztecan dialect. They used to call it Shoshonean, but now it's Aztecan. I didn't see any pack dogs to pull. If there aren't any horses, where are the dogs? You got to get those teepees done and dragged somewhere. And Mama ain't dragging it herself because that's some heavy shit. I mean, buffalo skin is not light. So where are the dogs? Because if they didn't have horses, they used dogs to pull travois. Command 1700s. If it's 1718, the Comanches basically ruled the southern plains. And here's another thing. They kept the Spaniards from expanding northward into the American continent. Wasn't the Kiowa, wasn't the Arapaho, wasn't the Caddo. It was the Comanche. And, that was the 1500s into the 1600s. So, yeah, they did have horses. You can't be those people the way they were without horses and the way they developed their culture. By the time you get into when they actually had to confront the Texicans, and then the U.S. cavalry, they were they were breeding their own horses. Okay, only one or two tribes ever did that. The Nez Perce up in the Pacific Northwest created the Appaloosa breed, spotted horses, and the Comanche. They had herds and herds of horses that were theirs, that they bred, that they, you know, and that bothered me because you can't get a culture like that without having a pretty good idea of where it's going hundreds of years before. And, breeding horses isn't hard, but for a nomadic hunter-gatherer culture, that, look, if you're breeding horses, you're this close, and you're domesticating dogs, you're this close to starting to go into settled land and to create your own whatever. But early 1700s, they had horses. They had to, because you can't get to where they were in the 1800s without that. That's over 100 years and generations of people. It bothered me. It bothered me there were no buffalo, except for dead ones. And who killed them? There's an allusion to the buffalo hunters in the 1800s, and blaming the French. But was it the predator? If you go to Lawton, Oklahoma, and you go to the Wichita Mountains, that's where the show should have been filmed. There are woods. There are places for the predator to hide. There's boundless wildlife. You got buffalo. You got wild Texas longhorns. You've got coyotes. You've got prairie dog towns. You've got elk. You got deer. You got all that stuff. And that country was a thing, was part of what made them who they were. The thing about the Comanche is that there was never a lot of them. They had a low birth rate. When they would go out on the warpath and raiding parties, they would bring back young girls, little boys, everybody else, whatever village, Kiowa village, or Arapaho village, or Apache village, or whatever, that the party came across. All the men were killed. All the old people were killed. The women of age were raped and murdered. And the children that were not babies were taken back and adopted into the tribe. All right, because they had a low birth rate. It's one of the things that make the Comanche unique. They were so terrifying that they could keep the Spanish out of most of Texas. Sioux, Lakota Sioux. Them being what? I don't, they looked right. They looked right. It just didn't feel right. It didn't feel historically accurate. If you could have filmed it in the Wichita Mountains. It wouldn't have cost much. And you would have probably had actual Comanches wanting to be in it. Could have actually gotten horses that looked like the horses that they would have had. Their horses would never be as big as, like, George Custer had two, Dandy and Vic. They were both thoroughbreds, like my horse, and they were big. Okay. A big horse is not going to go as far as a little horse. Okay. After out in the Great Plains, and the Indians proved this all the time, because The horses that they had were bred for the environment. Fast, stout, little, you know, bodybuilders. When you see pictures of the Indian ponies, they don't look like much, but they could go on forever with not a lot of food and not a lot of water. Okay, a thoroughbred born in Kentucky or born at one of the cavalry stations that bred horses, fed every day, good food, used to not having to forage for himself. You know, it you're not going to get the same results. And if you want to keep up with, look, you're a cavalry unit. You're riding through the State Plains, or a group of, you know, uh, Texas, uh, you know, Texas Marshals, and you're going along, and all of a sudden you see a settlement on fire. You ride up, the men are all scalped and dead, full of arrows. The women are raped and scalped and dead. The kids are gone. The babies are killed because they would kill the babies. I'm not kidding them. I'm not lying about this. Living on the Great Plains in the 1800s, in the 1700s, and the 1600s was a very tough proposition, okay? And everybody killed everybody. A very warlike environment. And you got to catch up to these guys. You see where their ponies went. How are you going to do that with your horses? Your horses are tired. They're worn out. They need to rest. They need water. They need food. They need shade. All right. Find me where there's good shade in that area of Texas. Fine. You can't. You can't. In Lawton, Oklahoma, I spent a couple of days there, saw Geronimo's grave, have pictures. It's haunted. It's haunted. And the cliff where he jumped his horse off, it's right there. We saw it. And like, I want someone to explain to me how the hell he lived through that. Because okay. But we saw it, and my husband and I, and as we're driving away, 4 deer go galloping across the road in front of us. Now, I took that as a sign from Geronimo and maybe Quanah Parker, because he's buried in the military cemetery there, next to his mother. And Quanah Parker is actually one of my heroes. He was able to secure things for the Comanche that Sitting Bull could never in a million years have secured for the Sioux. Okay? And it is very interesting to me how he went about it. He was half white, so he intrinsically kind of knew about us, who we were. And while he didn't like the Texans at all, because they went after, Texas Rangers and the Comanche went at each other like this. Until cavalry showed up. But he met Teddy Roosevelt. They became good friends. He rode in Teddy's inaugural parade, had dinner at the White House, had Teddy eat at his house in Oklahoma, and went out of his way to buy very expensive glasses to drink out of. And they were asking, why are you doing this? I mean, he doesn't, and he's like, well, I had to one-up him. You should see what he was letting us eat off of. Okay, that was how he thought. And it's a very interesting way, but he understood white people, I think, because he was half white. And when you go there, and I'm standing there looking at the grave, I'm like, he's at peace. His mother is buried beside him. And God knows where his father was. His father, I think, was killed. I want to say the Texas Rangers. I want to say that fight was against the Texans, and he was killed. But I I also want to say the cavalry, but either way, Nakona was killed after Cynthia Ann was kidnapped back and given back to her people. She didn't want to go back. You want to talk about Stockholm Syndrome? There it is. She didn't belong with the Parkers anymore. And it's a sad story. But look, as much as I love, hey Doug, as much as I love the Texas or stories about the settlers, gunfighters, the Indian Wars, you gotta look at it and understand it's very, very sad. A lot of it is very sad. I think Lonesome Dove really kind of captures that. There's a romantic sense to it, and there really was, of going west, and yet a very tragic sense. I think 1883 does the same thing. But when you're talking about this, oh yeah, you're right, Just Mike. But when you're looking at this movie, I wanted to see something more. There's one horse, but you don't see horses with the tribe. There should have been a pony herd grazing off that you could see, and you could see the boys watching over them. Some of these chiefs had 1,000 horses that belonged to them. Okay, they were serious about their breeding stock. Okay, they were serious. And a lot of guys that fought them said that nobody could ride horses better than a Comanche warrior. They could dip under the neck of their horse and fire arrows. I mean, all right, they were riding well by the time they were 4. Anyway, I gotta go. My voice is giving out. I'll talk to you all later. Please, let us pray we get an end to this Kennedy bullshit soon. I'm done. I've had it. I don't want to hear about her anymore. All right, you can tell she's done. I don't know why people even talk about her anymore. She is not the all-powerful Satan that everybody thinks she is. Let it go. It's not 2018 anymore. Gotta go. I'll see you guys later.